All right. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of Another Round with Jeff Johnson, Scott Kolins, and Stephen B. Jones. This is a sort of a spin-off show from the original Drink and Draw live stream. It's much going to be quieter and gentler. And let me introduce the crew. There's Stephen B. Jones. Steve has worked in comics since we were both teenagers and done everything in animation you can think of. You've been a storyboard artist and a background artist or a character designer on some of the most popular shows ever. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Big Mouth, Scooby-Doo. Can you name a couple others?
I think technically I was on Batman Animated Series, the New Adventures or whatever. So that only came on the redesign. It wasn't on the original permutation of that.
Gotcha.
And I don't even know because I don't think I listened well enough to the ones that you said in the first place. But I'm sure in the course of this show, the stuff I've worked on will come up.
Okay. And then Scott Kolins, who I'm sure you all know from The Flash, from The Avengers, from Solomon Grundy, and 1,000 other things. Scott, you want to throw a couple more their way?
Hey everybody! More of I did Marvel Team Up, Omega Flight. I've worked on Superman, Action Comics, Justice Society. And then stuff that's revolved around Flash, like Rogues Revenge and stuff like that.
Very, very cool. So tonight we are going to be doing some drinking and some talking, and not so much drawing, though we might do that in the future episodes. Steve's probably going to draw something.
If I'm looking down and away from the camera, just assume that I'm drawing, please.
Perfect. So tonight for our first episode, we thought it would be fun to talk about the first comics that we ever bought. And Scott, what do you got there? What is that you're drinking there?
Little Kilt Lifter.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. And I...
Cheers.
Some Steamworks Meadery.
Nice.
This is my favorite one at the moment. I've had this on a bunch of the shows. Orange Blossom.
That doesn't have the glitter?
Representing the non-drinkers and non-alcoholics or alcoholics who might be in recovery. I will be just starting with the paragon of all sodas, Coca-Cola Classic Original Taste.
Fantastic. Cheers, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Cheers, gentlemen.
All right.
Now, during a period for our vast listeners and watchers, during the 20th century, the three of us shared a comic book studio, and whenever we needed to meet a lot of deadlines, we would drink these, and we affectionately referred to them as Red Devils.
Right. Yeah, Red Devils. Yeah, Cokes were. Also, what were Mountain Dews were Green Demons, right?
Yeah, Mountain Dew's a Green Demon, and Coke's a Red Devil, and then the doctor was also, sometimes you had to call in the doctor if you needed Dr. Pepper.
when we were younger, I could
whatever forms of caffeine and sugar you get a hold of.
Oh man.
Only caffeinated drinks were allowed.
Yeah, getting through a night. Now I don't do many all-nighters or stay up that late. I sleep a lot more.
If someone wanted to watch this, what would be the link, Jeff? Say I randomly got a message just now from someone that might have wanted to watch it and I didn't have a link. How would I direct them to that?
We are on YouTube Live right now. So anyone who wants to see this, go to Drink and Draw YouTube, Another Round, and there we are. We're going to be live for a while, and we're going to be talking about the first comics we ever got as kids. Our first comic book loves. I don't know about you guys, but I can very clearly remember the first comic I ever bought. It was at a flea market, and it was my own money, and I think I was 10 or 11. What about you?
I think you were younger. I also think, by the way, Scott Kolins 2 is behaving himself, but Scott Kolins 1 has already kind of blown the reveal on what those first comics were, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, we could. Where did I?
You can never trust. You can never. You can never.
I don't know
really,
what you're talking about.
You can never really trust that Scott Kolins 1.
Right. So Scott, what was your first one? Was
He's
that?
trouble.
Yeah. We'll go left to right. Your first one was that Hulk issue, right?
Yeah, it was the Hulk 180. There were 2 issues of the Hulk on the stands in that newsstand that I found that first time. I know it's the 180. This is the copy I think that I've always had. And I don't know if the second issue one was actually 181 with the full issue of Wolverine, or the other big one that I have is the next one, the 182. And both of those are, really beat up and read a million times. And yeah, there it is.
But dude, that's
that's
remarkable. That you had the good taste to have your first comic be the first appearance of Wolverine. Is amazing.
Yeah.
It was one of my true lucky moments of breaking in. No, but I honestly, we're all going to have our own reactions on that stuff, but I do feel very lucky of that being the first book. More to speaking to me of just the fact that I like monsters, and that Herb Trimpe was my then entree artist into this whole field, who could do exactly the job he was supposed to do, and that take somebody who hadn't seen anything like this before and bring me into it and not make it difficult and intrigue me, so that, I had to read the next one. I had to find the next one. I had to search out the stores and places where they would turn up or whatever they were going to do. So the whole crew there, Len and Herb, and Glynis was on there as the colorist. It's when people were really doing that job, I think, of it was so important to the industry to be always looking out for that new reader.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a great book, Scott.
What's that? Sorry, Jeff. What's that classic Stan Lee quote? That always important to remember that every Marvel comic is someone's first Marvel comic, right?
Right.
Or something to that effect. And so, and even if at the point, having just reread Scott's issue today, even if it's Rascally Roy that was helping keep us up to date through all those little captions, like reminding us that the Wendigos first
editor notes and stuff,
161 and 162.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing that comics don't do as much now. Because I remember all the comics you would get back in the day would have an intro blurb in case that, like for me, it was your very first comic. So not only did you get an introduction to the character, but you kind of got a little bit of an introduction to what comics were about.
Well, it's interesting too, all the different methodologies, right? There was some of them did it more creatively in terms of a little bit of like the writer's captions giving you some background, and maybe getting some characters to just say some exposition that kind of told you what was going on in the first page or two. And other ones had more editorial helping you, like, hey there, courageous reader, like Glenn Talbot is referring to things from issue 171.
Wait, Steve, hang on just 1 second. So,
and
yes, I was gonna point that up. I'm so glad you did that, Scott, on camera so everyone could see you just bent the cover back on the first reading, just in case anyone didn't catch what you just did. You just
in mint condition, that comics were
they're meant to be read and enjoyed.
$9,000.
Agreed. I'm just glad we caught that so that everyone sees what a comic was supposed to happen.
Well,
even that beat up one is probably worth hundreds, but go ahead, fold it back, Scott.
I saw other ones online or whatever that were selling for like $40, so it's not that. But all of these have that. That's one of the great things about the Marvel books at the time, was they all had that masthead on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
That when you didn't know the book or weren't aware of it or whatever, it gave you that whole thing going on. So
Scott,
the Hulk was a great one. It was like,
could you read the Hulk one? It's so good. That blurb at the
caught
top.
in the heart of a nuclear explosion, nuclear explosion, excuse me, victim of gamma radiation gone wild, Dr. Robert Bruce Banner now finds himself transformed in times of stress into 7 feet, 1,000 pounds of unfettered fury, the most powerful creature to ever walk the earth, the Incredible Hulk. They're so good.
It's beautiful.
Good times. It's good times.
I do miss those.
I do love that. All right, so you pulled out a couple other ones, or you pulled out Jones's. Let's see. Let's see.
Well, sadly, I don't have yours, Jeff.
I know, it's okay. We'll get to that one. So Black Panther, right?
Well, wait. Are we done? All right. Well, I'm sure we'll circle back.
I think yeah. I think we're
just jumping around.
Yeah, we'll jump around, but we'll come back and get a little more. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive. I just want to get, since Scott held it up. Here we go. Black Panther. There's the cover.
There it is.
If you also want to bend the cover back on that one, that's cool.
What, I can't do that to that one.
No. There you go.
Well, now I want to. With the sleekness of a jungle beast, the Prince of Wakanda stalks both the concrete of the city and the undergrowth of the veldt. For when danger lurks, he dons the garb of the savage cat from which he gains his name. Stan Lee presents, Kirby must have hated that, the Black Panther.
There it is.
Look at that. Yeah, look at that pose. I mean, honestly, when you're a kid and you see that, how do you not spend your allowance on that, right? That just makes makes good sense.
That's literally
absolutely.
It makes good 30 cents.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I think back during, the first allowance I ever remember getting was 50 cents a week. And I I remember walking down to the 7-Eleven back when parents allowed unaccompanied minors to walk miles at a time, and I spent I of course, and sadly this reflects my financial stuff now. I spent my entire allowance. I saved none of it out of that 50 cents, 25% on a comic, or 25 cents on a comic, and the other 25 cents on a medium mixed Slurpee, and was a happy kid.
Right.
Because that was always the fun, right? Was to find the comic book, whatever it was. If you need to get your drink or whatever it is, and hang out with your buddy, whatever it was, and then you go someplace that was really cool. I had like one of the best summers ever. It was during the Proteus saga on X-Men. We got our comics. We went with our parents to the stores, whatnot, got our comics, whatnot. I forget what drinks we got or whatnot. My friend lived by the actual like open woods, and we had like forts and stuff out there. We found this beautiful little spot with moss and grass and whatnot out in the sunny. And I'm reading about Proteus fighting the X-Men out in the sun. It was just so glorious back then to like take that and have those moments of enjoyment.
Great contrast too, because as I remember, they were fighting Proteus on like the dark English moors or something like that at that point too. So
Yep.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about these first comics. Oh Lord. And the interesting thing is I didn't realize like how it just shows how little any of us have changed, even since before we didn't know each other. Like the imprint of Scott has always loved drawing monsters. He's always happiest when he's drawing monsters. He created his own creator-owned book where there would be as many monsters as possible. Jeff's first comic was, the cover is by Joe Kubert. It's edited. Yeah, it's edited by Joe Kubert with an artist that is very much trying to do a Joe Kubert on the inside.
What's funny? So one of the you're totally right, Steve. One of the things I think is really interesting about when we decided to do this topic, I had remembered that this was the first comic I had bought. Like I said, I found it at a flea market, and I think I paid a dime for it, maybe 15 cents. But then when I started, Scott looked up a bunch of the actual pages from the inside, and it was stunning to me how much those had an influence on me. Like, not only was I
look at that
fan, but like that is a page I would be proud to draw today.
No, I noticed the exact same thing where it's like, wow, it's so weird what an indelible mark all these comics sort of made, and that Jeff's first comics are from someone that is an incredibly, well, I mean, I don't know this artist particularly well, but they're obviously heavily, heavily influenced by Kubert. And I even wonder if Kubert was thumbnailing these or something, because it says he's the editor. But it's like, it's an incredible, Kubert is one of those people that I think is, you can notice the direct lineage of Buscema's work in Jeff's work, but I think in Kubert it's there too. And it's like, Jeff's drawing, this draftsmanship is always super duper strong. The figure work is always super duper strong, with the anatomy being really strong. The perspective is always correct and really strong. The storytelling's really, and honestly, that whole comic, when Scott dug it out.
Here's another one.
Right.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Another thing I would be super proud to actually be able to pull off.
No, I could totally see you drawing this whole exact thing almost, very similarly or the exact same way. Like if you go through those panels.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And so one of the things that so I definitely
look at that water.
I know, right? That water is amazing, even still.
Look at that freaking water. It's looking so awesome.
I have to laugh at myself in the same thing. And I even just realized it in the same storytelling about going and buying comics without first allowance, which is like, okay, typical to you guys. It's the imprint is all over you guys, right?
Well, I mean, I was gonna say, look, this is one of Steve's first comics, right? Like Steve, loves Kirby, knows so much about Kirby, and look at those. Like, it's almost, I'm not surprised that you found your way to animation, because Kirby has his characters are so animated.
Well, what cracks me up though too is thinking like, okay, you guys are all, this is my first comic. This is my first comic. Typical to me, I had to pick two. I couldn't just pick one. And I think I bought two at the same time. And then I realized in telling you guys the story, I had to get a medium mix Slurpee. I couldn't just pick one flavor. I had to have two flavors.
It's true. Well, I mean, here's your other first,
complicated man.
Other first, right? Is this guy?
Well, no, exactly.
Such a good issue.
It's amazing. Well, but I think it's very indicative of my character. Am I an artist or am I an actor? Am I a character designer or a storyboard artist? Like I've always been a little bit of a jack of all trades and had a little bit of trouble picking a lane, and so, but the Wonder Man and the Vision, it's so funny because someone was asking me recently, like the Vision was my favorite comic book character when I was young. And someone was like, really? Why? But if you read this issue, really well written by Jim Shooter, by the way, it just seems like the Vision is the star of the Avengers. Like he's in the corner box. He's featured the most prominently on this cover, which Scott, do you think? I think someone redrew, I think Buscema or someone redrew Vision's face. I think everything else on this cover is Kirby, but that Vision face does not quite look like Kirby. Though it's interesting to me that
I concur.
That's a totally Kirby Scarlet Witch, and it's a totally Kirby Cap and Iron Man and Wendy. But someone didn't like how Jack drew Vision's face.
I agree. Some probably did change it, but it's one of those weird things where, remember, during these covers though, he didn't lay them out either.
No. Well, and then
Jack was often given layouts for these things.
And the first, like when we come into the first page of this comic, we're inside the Vision's head. Like we're hearing his thoughts. He's most prominently displayed on, in this thing. He's leading the way. I don't know how many pages we have in here, and I, of course, but later on when they're like sneaking up on Graviton, there's this amazing shot that I think my dad showed me how to do this thing back in the 70s, where it was like you could get carbon paper and put it behind the comic, and then you would trace over it with a ballpoint pen, Jeff's favorite tool, and then it would allow you to trace images from the comic and stuff. And if you read this issue, it seems like it's the Vision and the Avengers. It seems like he's 100% the star.
Yeah, he's usually in the starring role.
Right.
Johnson,
guys,
can you bring up?
I just wanted to say we have a special guest who decided to join us to talk about his favorite comic. I would like to introduce everyone, though you all know him, to Dave Johnson.
Hey.
Wait, Dave Derp Johnson.
Hey, I pulled out all the stops for the show.
Yeah. So Dave also let us know what his.
I like this angle.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I'm currently coloring a cover, and I can't really do both on camera. So
it's a hero shot,
and it's my iPhone. So,
so Dave let us know. So mine was Son of Tarzan. Steve's was an Avengers Black Panther. Scott was the Hulk, and Dave's was Micronauts #5.
Wow!
Well,
Nice.
I got to give a caveat. I actually, when I was way young, I would buy comics, and I must have been 6 or 7, and I had like a stack about 2 feet tall, and my mom said, "You're taking up too much room. You got to throw them away," and I had to throw them all away.
Oh!
And she wouldn't let me buy them for another probably till I was like 10 or 11. And Star Wars came out and all that, and then a little bit later, I was at a Five and Dime, and I was already buying Micronauts toys, and there was a comic that said Micronauts, and I was like, well, I gotta buy this. I mean, I'm buying toys, and that was my first introduction. That's probably why I draw the way I draw. Is because I had Mike Golden as an influence early on.
Well, I mean, I
was about to say, luckily you walk into Mike.
It's a very auspicious first comic, to be sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Nice.
I mean, you can see Dave Johnson in all these panels.
Yeah.
Oh, for many years I tried to be Mike. I mean, I was doing very similar inking and trying to draw like him, especially the text stuff.
Yeah.
And
a lot of us tried.
Always coming up short.
Right.
And he was a good influence. Him and John Byrne. I was buying his stuff and X-Men. So,
well, I found this cover, Dave. It's not from Micronauts 5, but it's like an epic size or large size. But I saw this cover and I 100% thought of you.
Well, that's not Mike Golden.
Isn't it?
That's Butch Geist, right?
Oh, right.
Broderick or something.
No, that's Geist inked by Milgram. No,
right.
it's Butch Geist. Yeah, it's Butch Geist inked by Milgram.
Yeah.
Does it say Butch? Oh yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the Golden influence really, like it's very difficult to measure just how much some of these early guys affected. I mean, we talk about Kirby affecting people and Buscema, but like Golden set the tone for basically everyone after him in a way. And I think that one of the great things about reading talking about your first comic or your first comic book love, the first kind of your first influence, is like it's very difficult as an artist, I think, to get away from, or not that you would want to, but like I feel like that first ingredient it sticks in.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's funny you mentioned how much Golden influenced other artists. I mean, you can kind of almost draw a line from Mike Golden to Art Adams, and then Art Adams to all these other guys that were influenced by Art Adams, but he was kind of like the first guy.
Totally.
And super nice guy.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh yeah.
And Dave, there's
absolutely.
You and Jason, and there's definitely a group of people for whom Golden is the initial source material.
Totally.
He's the Unimind to make an Eternals with a reference.
Yeah.
And he's still kicking.
Oh yeah, no, there was an obvious influence from Golden through the 80s and 90s. Maybe less now in the 2000s or something like that, but it was hugely strong throughout the 80s and 90s of what Golden did.
Yeah. And those were great stories too. I mean, for a toy comic book, I mean,
for sure, it's Bill Mantlo, right?
Yeah, I mean, they really did a good job,
Yeah.
Unlike a lot of toy comics, I don't know if you saw some of the other ones, but Not a fan of Rom or any of those. But
Well, Golden, I liked Rom just because Golden did a lot of the covers, so I kind of somehow transferred what Golden was doing on the outside into some of the inside. And I think, looking at one of my first comics, there was Sal Buscema. I think Sal did a lot of the inside of Rom.
He did. Yep.
And Trimpy, Scott's hero, was doing Shogun Warriors, I think.
Oh, yeah. I love Shogun Warriors. I had the toys back in the day. The Shogun Warriors were made out of die-cast metal. They were big and heavy. And actually, when you would they would shoot little missiles. They shot pretty far. They were a hazard.
My eye.
Some of Dave's beloved Micronauts were also made out of die-cast metal, and you definitely couldn't throw your die-cast metal toys at your friends in the way that you could kind of hurl a Mego action figure at a friend with far less chance of injury.
Yeah, dangerous toys. I'm of the generation that had the Kung Fu Grip GI Joes, and I had a Jeep with a trailer that had a recoilless cannon on the back of it, and its spring was so good that you'd pull it back, and I used to put sharpened pencils in it.
Oh God!
Go through the cardboard.
Yeah, definitely not. Not repeatable behavior. That's not.
Well,
back in the days when monkey bars were 12 feet tall.
And yeah. Oh man.
Yeah,
the world used to be a lot more dangerous, I think, in some ways. Yeah.
Trying to kill children.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's only the strong survive. That's for sure.
Yes, Scott, that is the exact panel. That image of the Vision I traced.
This one? Yeah.
If I could have found my copy of Avengers 158, which I know is just in a closet somewhere behind me, if we could dig out that comic, and not that one though, that's an amazing one too. I should have done it because that has better foreshortening. But the one where he's phasing through the wall and the woman is like sort of trying to trick that one. Yeah. I just pointed at the screen like you could see. I know that my copy of that would have dark blue ballpoint pen all over that image.
No, but it's great what you're pointing out too, because when I reread this for the story bit, it's great because on the previous page, he shows himself in his costume for the first time and makes all these grandiose statements and everything. But the girl that he's trying to impress or get with, whatever, she's crying and everything, which is like a Jim Shooter story. But in this last panel, he's boasting to her, and she's obviously looking off screen, going, wait a minute. But then when you go to the next thing, you turn the page, then she's still quickly trying to like, oh yeah, keep busy. I'm talking to you right now. Keep looking at me. I'm the girl or whatever. So she's even trying to help the Avengers come in and kick his butt.
It's a great reveal. And I mean, and that issue, because this is during that time, right? Like I bought these at the 7-Eleven in Danville Boulevard in Alamo, California. And then, back then we were just at the whim of if you happen to get in the 7-Eleven at the right time and so I was never able to get Avengers 159 for years. I picked up Avengers 160, which is an amazing George Perez story that continued the spotlight on Vision and Wonder Man. It's the one where Grim Reaper is going to try to decide.
Oh yeah,
who's the real one? Yeah. But forever I'm like, well, all right, I know that the Avengers survived and they beat Graviton, but how and what the hell happened?
For the longest time, I never had X-Men 133.
Oh my Lord, dude! All right, so that's where
for years I did not have that issue. It was killing me.
Your good luck was getting the first appearance with
it
Wolverine.
Boomeranged.
Then backgrounded, and you got one of the most other important issues with Wolverine.
I know. I was stuck with 132, the ending there where he's in the sewer, and then to 134 when they wind up beating the Hellfire Club. But I never knew how Wolverine got back. I'm like, what's going on?
Well, both my Black Panther and Avengers 158 came out in 1977, and then I got my first X-Men at 111 in 1978. That's when the Beast comes to try to rescue the the X-Men, and they've all been hypnotized by Mesmero. And I never missed another issue of the X-Men from that point forward, except the first appearance of Kitty Pryde at 129. I traded 8 issues of the Fantastic Four for an extremely beat up copy of X-Men 129.
Well, I mean, I think that's a really funny thing to think about. Like, because back in the day, and I know that we're all of a certain age, but like before, like the only place you could get comics was often like the local 7-Eleven or the drugstore or whatever. I remember that one of the skills I have now is that if I don't know the whole story, then I just in my mind leave a blank space for that story to fit in, so that whenever I do finally find that back issue, or a friend has that issue,
Yeah,
and fill it in. But like, I'm very good now about like, oh, I missed that episode. I won't even think about that episode, and there's just be an empty spot until I slot it in later on. And that definitely comes from just years of going to 7-Eleven and missing the window. That comic is gone.
Jeff's ability to do this has probably made me a worse storyteller, because if Jeff doesn't understand something I'm saying in a story, he'll just like, well, if I just let Steve keep talking, it will eventually make sense. So I'm not going to interrupt him.
We'll catch up to the point where Jeff catches on like, oh yeah, I know that issue.
Yeah, he will definitely circle around.
Well, I got to the point where I got tired of missing issues, and I ponied up for the subscriptions. But then every once in a while, a book would get lost in the mail, which would be just
yeah.
Right.
Sons of bitches.
I mean, also, the description thing was like, if you had the money to pay in advance, right? Like to get also the skill to get organized and do that, which I never had, then you were way ahead of the curve.
Well, or in Jeff's case, if you even knew you'd continue to be at that address. Right.
I mean, that's really the issue, is that I was never.
I think in 1980, I managed to subscribe to stuff for 1 year, but my parents moved not as often as Jeff, but we moved once a year until I was 13. And so I think I subscribed to 4 different comics for 1 year. I think I did Avengers, X-Men, but then I screwed the pooch on some. Like I subscribed to the X-Men just in time for Dave Cockrum to come back.
Oh, I love those episodes or those issues. Those are great.
They're good, but I think maybe like, the Kitty Pryde versus the Alien one was maybe the second episode, issue I got through the subscription. And then maybe it was like, did Captain Marvel, didn't they put him into like Marvel Spotlight or something? And so I subscribed to that, I think, because I just loved, Marvel. I thought he was a great character. And then he only appeared in like 1 more issue. And then it was like, very, very strange random comics in Marvel Spotlight after that point.
Yeah.
Well, I got a funny story back. If we swing back around on Micronauts, I remember Micronauts 11 came out. I was like, woohoo! I think it was 11 or 12. That was the finale of the main story.
Yeah.
And then Bug gets shot into space, and he's flying through space all by himself. And I was so like, I can't wait to see his homeworld. This is going to be amazing. Like Golden's going to kill it. And then I get the issue, and Howard Chaykin and Many Hands.
Right.
I mean, he did the next couple of issues, and they were, I'll be honest, they were horrible. And it just crushed me. I was so angry. And for years, I was angry about it. And then I remember when I was working at Cartoon Network, I had my own office. I was art directing the show on Ben 10. And had a couple of guys in the office, and I realized, hey, wait a minute. I have Howard Chaykin's phone number. And I actually called him up and said, what the hell? Why was that art so bad? And he just goes, you son of a bitch. And he informed me, which I didn't know, that they literally, because Mike Golden was so behind, they dropped it on him.
Yep.
You've got to literally a week to draw like 3 issues. So that's why the art was so
Right.
which makes sense because it was really, really, really bad. I mean,
I think my intro to Micronauts was all those next, because I think you're just that little bit older, Dave. So I think I missed, like, I came in when Golden was still doing the covers, but Pat Broderick had taken over probably after this horrible series.
That was the name I was trying to think of. That's probably
Pat.
the guy that was doing Captain Marvel and Spotlight you were mentioning.
That's right. Yeah, he was.
Yep.
Before
I love those.
happened to him
before he did Firestorm.
Pat still does comics.
Yeah.
Pat still does a bunch of stuff. Scott and I got to hang out with him when we were at a show. What show was that, Scott? That was
Pensacon.
Pensacon. Yeah, super cool, super great guy. Still does a lot of art. And yeah, I remember being obviously I started collecting the Micronauts stuff when I saw Michael Golden work, but then I still loved it when Pat was doing it, and I think that I was a huge fan for a very long time.
No, I kept buying them when Pat did it, but it just wasn't, wasn't Golden, but I sucked it up because I love the series. So.
Right. And it was funny that Micronauts was your first thing, because I've seen your I don't know if this is a sore subject or not, but like your designs for the animated TV pitch were fantastic.
Well, that's why I wanted to do it, because I had such an affinity for the characters, and that's why it hurt so bad when the guys who own the property sold it out from under us to Hasbro.
Yeah.
And, I finally got to see what they did, even though it never aired. And let me tell you, it was so bad.
Was that the Eric Rogers one?
Yeah. So I was kind of like relieved that, I don't know, maybe, who knows what the future holds.
The future is long.
Yeah.
Shoot, I forgot that I've never put it up because I feel like Hasbro's so touchy about this stuff, because I feel like Dave was, luckily we're able to see that artwork of Dave's at a certain point, but I forgot that I was in the mix on that right before Eric became involved in that one, and I don't have it ready now, but in a future time I'll bring up, like, I did a pass on Micronauts before they moved it to Eric's or something like that. Just Hasbro's like literally had so many people over the years, take a crack at that.
They should have called me.
Right.
But no, I mean, our story that we came up with was, it related to the Marvel comic, but not in any way that they would, get upset. And it feels like the Hasbro one, they just took the name and that was it. I mean, other than that, it did not.
I can't hear you guys.
And I mean, we had this whole thing with, I mean, it was basically going to be like the Avengers, but small. And I mean, man, I can't even begin to tell you how cool it was going to be. And we were going to do micro 1-minute episodes at the end of each episode.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that would all come together if you bought the DVD. It would have the finale. So it would be like 24 minutes. And we were going to do it in a different style and everything. And man, I'm still pissed off about that.
Weird.
So mad. But what are you going to do?
So Jones, let's go back to, like, we were doing a bit of a deep dive on your first comics, and I know your love of Kirby, and so I was going to put up some of the some of that stuff from that Black Panther issue. Is so really cool.
It's amazing. I mean, I think an image on this, that splash page, and the 2-page spread are amazing, but I think the weird thing that stuck with me my whole life, like I remember, I think it's like on page 4, Black Panther to sort of like try to trick the Hatch 22 guy as he drops to his hands and knees and he starts doing push-ups. And I just always remember thinking that was just like the craziest thing, but that, Black Panther tries as hard as he can to resolve it without violence.
Right. Well, I mean, once
Well,
again,
he
like,
specifically grabs the woman's hand too and says, "Don't shoot him."
Right. Princess Xanda, who is a very similar to Big Barda, obviously.
right.
Yeah, kind of.
Just swapped out a couple, change a few letters, change the skin tone. And
Do you know who Big Barda's or Kirby's who he based Big Barda on?
No.
Did you ever see?
I forget the name. It's the
actress who played the mother in My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Really?
Yeah, she actually did a kind of a spread in Playboy in the 60s. She was a jazz singer, and she did a pictorial. I mean, she was like the playmate, but yeah, I mean, good old Jack, man. He was looking at porn, 60s porn, but yeah, I forgot her name, but it's the issue with the twins. I don't know if you guys remember that one or not, but yeah, crazy. Little tidbit.
Yeah, if you look up on the internet, it's out there now. If you ask Google or whatever who the inspiration was, they'll tell you.
Yeah,
I am not that good. I'm sure someone will come in and like in the comments and figure that out. That's a great little bit of information. Oh wait, here we go. Thank you, Bill.
Lani Kazan. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great photos. I mean,
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
she was not bad looking, back in the day.
Yeah. Oh,
She definitely did look like a Kirby woman. So I mean, it kind of fit both ways.
Yeah, totally.
right.
and it's so great
Very
how
statuesque.
Royer, I forgot until looking at this again today about just the fact that Royer was lettering Kirby as well as inking him is just so crazy. And Mike is so, I think Mike's my second favorite Kirby inker, because Mike Royer is kind of a combo of Sinnott and my favorite Kirby inker, which is Frank Giacoia. I think it's he's more organic looking than Sinnott. I'd say Mike Royer is more organic than Sinnott, but he's not as organic as Giacoia, But I mean, Royer's, I guess, did Royer ink more Kirby than any other when you consider that? Didn't Royer ink nearly all the Fourth World stuff and nearly all the Return to Marvel stuff?
Well, I think it only actually would have been a little over half of the Fourth World stuff because he didn't come in until like the fourth or fifth issue of all the Fourth World books.
And I forgot that Vinny
Coletta was inking all that
Vince
stuff.
Coletta was doing the Forever People stuff.
Yeah,
and
I got to stick with Sinnott all the time. I mean, he was just the guy. I mean, he made John Byrne so much fun to look at on Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap! What a great inker.
Yeah, I loved his line. It was so.
Oh yeah, no, his brush line was so beautiful.
It was fantastic.
Totally loved Sinnott, but I feel like the Giacoia on like the Captain America Tales of Suspense stuff. That's like if Kirby could always look like that's my favorite. But,
You're wrong, Steve. You're wrong.
and I do love the Chick Stone coloring book style of Kirby inking too. That only works on like a less advanced version of Kirby.
Okay, get out, Steve. Get out. Just leave right now.
Hey now.
Well, here, this will make Dave really mad. I still like a lot of what Coletta did on the Thor stuff. I know
okay.
I know he ripped. Wait. I know he ripped stuff up, and I know he deleted stuff, and almost that was bad. But two things: one, when Coletta was on it, when he actually was working and was like paid well or had more than 2 hours to ink a freaking page. There's some of that in those artifact editions. I think, Steve, you've got mine right now, where the cover one that's out there, that's a Coletta ink on that cover, and it's really, really good. And my second thing about Coletta, beyond all his faults, and he does have tons of faults, at least on the Thor stuff, more than I think the Fourth World and other things like that, was that grit that he brought to those Thor pages works perfectly. I think that's one of those reasons why Simonson is so attached to Thor later on, is because of those grit of his pencils and inks and stuff like that, the edginess of it all. if you would put Sinnott, and I think Sinnott might have done some stuff on Thor-related material once or twice or whatever, that polish I don't think works as well.
I could
It's
Hit
only-
me, Dave. Hit me.
Yeah, no, I mean,
It's only because I love Scott as a human being so much.
I mean,
that
that's a pretty cogent argument. You really can't. he's got a good point there. That's
But imagine,
But I like all the other guys that have been out there, and they have some scratch on there.
I think that argument is a
someone
little.
like Al Williamson inked it. You know, I mean, you know, you can say you
Oh,
like
sure,
the
Al
cover
would've been
because
amazing.
it wasn't slick, but
Yeah.
if a competent inker inked them on that stuff, imagine the possibilities. So,
I mean,
think
on a quick little side note, as an Uber fan, Al Williamson inking Jack Kirby. I mean, would that have not been amazing?
Yeah.
If we lived in
Sure.
a universe and we could conflate times, that Jack Kirby inked by Al Williamson would have been so brilliant.
I don't know if that would. Part of me feels like that would be like.
Totally.
Part of me feels like that would be like putting cupcake frosting on an apple pie. It's like it's very sweet, but I don't think it matches the one kind of dessert with the other kind of dessert.
Oh, all right. I mean, I love the food.
Yeah, but
analogy.
Al did a great job inking John Romita Jr.
On the other hand, I feel like Scott made a very cogent argument, but at the same time, part of me feels it's a little bit like when you say, well, my dad beat my mom, but he had a really tough day. And
What?
you're just trying to just explain why something horrible was okay. But it's not okay, Scott.
Okay, Scott. All right, Scott. Let's move on from Kirby to show some Avengers stuff. Let's cleanse a palate a bit.
So there's so much great Sal Buscema, I want to say Sal Buscema tropes in that Avengers 158, like that shot right there at the bottom.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
Like when
Yeah. The punching shots. Yeah,
the
absolutely.
1D coming at Cam, and I'm positive that I traced that hand like a million times as a kid when like trying to draw my own comics. Just
Totally. Yeah,
This
I mean,
one?
yeah, totally, 100%. I've stolen, as Dave knows.
Oh, yeah. I've drawn that hand a
shots.
million times.
Yeah, I've stolen that shot without a doubt.
But he's got a few of those in this issue of the punches and flying shots or whatever. They're brilliant.
for sure. I mean, this is
Yeah,
an
there's
epic
another
battle.
one.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Look at that.
I mean, I think
zap.
Sal was obviously not the draftsman that his brother was, or the storyteller, but his stuff did have tremendous energy. Like I came into the Hulk after you, Scott, so I missed Herb Trimpe, but he kind of came.
Look at that blasting shot.
Sal was the Hulk, was the artist on the Hulk when I came onto the Hulk, and I feel like
Yeah.
he always had people's teeth getting knocked out.
Yep. No, and Sal totally proved himself. He was on there for a long time. He was on there for like 5-7 years or something like that. A really long time on Hulk, and he did a brilliant job.
I wonder if any artist drew more molars flying out of people's teeth in their
I mean,
mouth.
that's one measure of success that we probably haven't added up. Like, who's drawn more busted jaws?
I know I've drawn
But
quite
even that,
coming out of people's mouths.
Yeah, totally.
The other thing that
look at that guy.
That's great.
that really influenced me, and I'd be remiss not to bring it up, was all the underground and heavy metal, like Metal Hurlant, all that stuff. Epic
yeah.
19. I mean, that stuff just killed me as a kid.
Mhm.
Most of it I shouldn't have been looking at,
Well, so,
but luckily,
Right.
so what do you think, Dave? Were you exposed to the more European stuff like pretty early, right?
yeah, well, the comic store I went to, they had a bunch of musty old boxes full of all sorts of stuff. I mean, underground stuff. I mean, I remember buying a copy of Leather Nun, this really infamous comic, and I shouldn't have been buying it, but
This is in suburban Georgia. You were getting this?
yeah, the guy behind the counter, he didn't blink an eye, all those Richard Corbin slow death comics.
Oh yeah, Corbin. I remember Corbin from from heavy metal. Corbin was a huge influence on me.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
like,
I was buying all that stuff. I mean, you know, I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest stuff ever.
Yeah.
I don't think I was exposed to heavy metal until the movie. Speaking of Corbin and Dan, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, before I saw A Real Naked Woman, I was seeing Richard Corbin anatomy all over the place. If you get what it was like, whoa, hey,
absolutely.
jeez. But yeah, that was
Frazetta would have been the one for me of that kind of maturity of artwork, when all of a sudden you see stuff where you're just absolutely like, holy cow, does this actually come out of a person? Can they do this sort of thing? Friends of mine would have some of these books around, and I didn't see them till like, I don't know, 8th or 9th grade, somewhere in there, I think. But I was like, whoa, that is a whole other beast.
Same with Jeff. When Jeff and I met when I was 15 and he was 16. I think Jeff had only just turned 16 and I was still 15. And Jeff had all 5 of these Frazetta books, and I'd never seen them before, and I was definitely blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that's funny about that is, like, as much as Scott bent back the cover on a very hard to find book, I did the exact same thing to all those Frazetta books. Like,
oh yeah,
brutalized those. I mean, I traced out of them, I copied out of them, I dog-eared them, I spine back. I mean, I have them all still, but I have to say, like, those, like, trying to draw, like, that's where I really discovered the ballpoint pen, is trying to copy what Frank was doing in paint with a ballpoint pen and trying to capture some feeling of it, is exactly where my style comes from. Yeah.
Oh, I just assumed the ballpoint pen in your art style came from the fact that it's like the cheapest tool and it was all that you had access to.
Well, oh, for sure. But like that, the stuff that I was trying to copy was all of the stuff that Frank was doing with paint and with his brush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I could never, and what's funny is, like, so my cross-hatching style comes from basically trying to fill in black, Frazetta style, and give it some sort of flow and emotion. Yeah.
Buddy Lord, those are so good.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but when I saw that Warlord of Mars, I saw, before I read the books, I saw the illustrations in those Frank books, and then I went out and found the books.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the illustrations first too, by years.
Yeah. Very
That's
long
John
time.
Carter. Yeah.
Yeah, his vision. It's funny how, when we talked about earlier, how the first comics that we bought, that those artists affected us forever. And I definitely think that the chemistry of Frank Frazetta cannot be ignored, for at least myself. Like, just seeing, like, the way he composes a picture, the way lighting works, the way a figure moves. Even as a kid, that stuff got deep into my psyche.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Just like Dave was mentioning the John Burns stuff before, John Burns' storytelling system, whatever you want to call it, I don't know if it was just under the Jim Shooter method of the time or what, but those, the Iron Fist to X-Men to FF Time or whatever, the way that he told a story is like truly ingrained in the back of my head, that it's really hard. I had to do certain things over the years to, like, make sure I moved away from this particular idea or that way to tell the story, to try and find my own voice a little bit, but that stuff's in there. It doesn't go away.
Yeah,
for sure. Because I feel like for me, I got that X-Men 111 in the following year, and got all of those Chris Claremont, John Byrne Marvel team-ups that they did for about 18 months. Like, that was really my first exposure to Spider-Man. And I feel like just the Chris Claremont, John Byrne combo of art and writing, that's like what comics were to me, for sure.
You didn't have this guy, did you, Dave?
Big Jim.
No, I never had Big Jim. I had the $6 Million Man, and the looking through his skull. You know,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
that was always weird. I don't really understand that, but you know, I guess how else are you going to show he's got bionic vision?
That's a very good question. Yeah, it's funny. Like back in the day, so not only were we, at least I was affected by the artists, but just I mean, the ads and all that stuff were such a part of the comic book experience.
Yeah.
Definitely made
All
me want
this
to eat
kooky stuff over here.
Hostess fruit pies. That's for
Oh
sure.
yeah, for sure. we all loved Hostess fruit pies. There's no doubt about that.
But you could learn to play guitar. You could do kung fu. You get
Yeah.
$1 million in cash.
X-ray specs.
You get a
Yeah.
hypno coin.
Play guitar in 7 days.
You
Yeah.
bet.
I
Yeah.
actually bought a Peace Ring in the 70s, and when I got it, I wore it for like a couple of days, and it turned my, you know, because it was made out of copper, it turned my finger green.
That's the price of a first love right there. A scarring and possible blood poisoning.
Exactly.
Well, gentlemen, so we're coming up on an hour. I think we've covered a lot of ground.
We've only just started.
I know, right? So we could talk about this kind of stuff forever, and we probably will. So,
So there.
yeah. I just want to say thanks everybody for coming on board, for joining us, and for you guys for coming on and being part of this episode, this show. And come back next week when we do.
Jeff, you've popped your cherry. You finally.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little behind the scenes. Dave and I have been doing the Drink and Draw show for a very long time. What episode are we on, Dave? Like 100 something?
Oh, I think more than that.
More than that. And I have been bitching and moaning about wanting to have a more like quiet conversation about more of a deep dive on things, but you know, we're doing big shows and we're drawing, and when you're drawing, it's very hard to have a conversation. And so this is my opportunity to do that. And I'm very glad that Dave came on. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, you know, unlike Dan, I'm supporting my friend.
Yay.
Yeah.
Dan is the reason that I'm doing this. He's helped me figure all this stuff out. So next week, I don't know who we're going to have on or what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be basically the same kind of thing where we're going to do a more intimate, personal, relaxed, deep dive into a particular topic. And I hope you all come back and join us.
Hey, let's do a whole episode where we just show phalluses from Richard Corbin. See how long that lasts.
God, you know what? If you want to just sit around and talk about Richard Corbin and his naughtier stuff, I have a lot of younger man memories of Dan and heavy metal and his adventures.
Oh man.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and cut to our goodbye panel.
You got outro music?
I do, as a matter of fact.
You do?
I do. Here we go.
Wait, copyright free?
Heck yeah.
I've covered all the bases, my friend. Take a listen to this.
You gotta turn it up.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us, and come join us next time.
Toodaloo.
Good night, everybody.